Here's the secret sauce for building a singles ministry. It starts by you picking fabulous people that everybody wants to be around. You have a few of them already committed. And then it's step two of those committed people. Some of them are kind of your outgoing, inviting people to do things kind of people. And then intentional is the other word. I've heard pastors preach sermons about how we should all be loving, and if you see someone standing alone, reach out to them. And I love those sermons. I preach that myself. But as soon as we say, it's your job this Sunday or for this singles event, you're the hospitality volunteer on schedule, where, all right, like they're really all in. Like they set their calendar aside so that after church on the morning they're assigned, they do plan to go out to lunch with friends, and their friends all know that this is the lunch where they'll just bring along anyone new that visited church that day. Or they set aside time after the singles event, kind of planning in advance to go out to ice cream and invite new people along. They've cleared their work schedule. They don't have an all-nighter to finish with school. Like they plan it. And then the other beautiful thing about intentional is they know for a fact that next Sunday or in a couple Sundays or events from now, they're not on the schedule, so that they are not burnt out, because Christian singles do such a great job serving. We don't want to ask too much. Okay, casual, frequent spaces. If you're going to build a friendship, you need more than a worship service or a Bible study to do so, right? You need casual time. And usually a few minutes before or after service or Bible study isn't quite enough. So we just need more casual spaces, lots of different ways to get that. But the thing about a casual space is it really works best, sometimes it only works, but it works best when there was an intentional hospitality volunteer that said, "Hey, are you sticking around for ice cream for an hour, the pizza lunch afterwards? Are you sticking around for that? Because I am, I'd love to talk more." Suddenly, that donut, pizza, who even cares what's happening? I just had someone say they'd love to hang out with me for 30 minutes to an hour. If someone is new at your church, they're usually someone who would welcome the chance to get to talk to someone at the church more, to have someone get to know them. That's someone who's moving or this or that. They're here to meet more people. If you're doing a men's and women's Bible study, before people go off to their main groups, right? Like the main people they talk to every Sunday or whatever, for the Bible study or whatever, those things are great. Long-term building relationships, that's all good. But before they go off to that, give them a chance to meet the other people in the room that aren't in their assigned group. I go to like ladies' Bible studies and I'm in this one table for like the whole year of these five ladies. And I love that because we become friends. But there's like 30 other women in the room and I have no way to get to know them unless the leaders create kind of an opportunity to mix it up every now and then. Today, just so you ladies can get a chance to meet one another, we're going to switch these two tables together or like whatever, or alphabetically or anything for you to kind of just do your highs and lows for the week. And if you have Zoom, it's super easy to do random breakout rooms this way. When people show up at the event and they know there's a chance they'll get to meet someone new that night, it's a real beautiful motivation to come, and we can be authentic about it. How can we serve one another in the Lord if we're not meeting one another in the Lord? It's just beautiful to do it naturally without asking people to be extroverts that walk across the room to start a conversation out of thin air. That's not a fair expectation. God says there's a lot of different people in the body of Christ. So let's not try and expect everyone to be an extrovert for this to work well. So I'm an extrovert. I'm here to serve my introverts. So, okay. All right, just a way that this can look. You already have random people assigned to the doors of your church on a Sunday morning to hand out bulletins or to say hello, or here's a name tag. Tell those people who your intentional single volunteer was on the schedule that day. So when someone comes in who seems new, who maybe seems single, they don't have to say, "Are you single?" In fact, they shouldn't say that. But if they see someone who walks in alone, say, "Oh, I'm so glad you came this morning. Is this your first time? Oh, I'd like to introduce you to one of my friends or to, one of the really nice people here at our church." Now they've been gently given a warm introduction to one of these wonderful Christian singles in the church who's already prepared to say, "Oh, I have some seats open next to me if you want to join," And if at the end of the service, that person that was new still seems like a nice, safe person, they can be like, "Oh, I'm going out to lunch with friends if you would like to join." Beautiful, beautiful. Church volunteers, whether you're married or single, so often when someone comes to a church leader and says, "I'm new to the church," or "I'm lonely," or whatever, "I'd like to get to make friends, I'd like to get to know people," like 100% of the time, serve, get involved is one of the things that comes up as a recommendation of how to get to know people. And I give that advice too. Uh, it works really well at some churches. There are other churches where volunteering, like, literally helps you meet no one and sometimes even makes it harder because now you're tied down. Anyways, the churches I've been in that have done this so well, where joining the church to serve completely introduced you to lots of wonderful people and really helped you feel a part. They were churches who would do things. They would do one of the following. They would either often have meals afterwards for the people who volunteered, married or single. If you volunteered, feel free to stay after. We know you had to stay after a little bit anyways, just to take down the chairs. This is our way to say thank you. And if you have intentional volunteers that have gone around and said, "Hey, how you doing this week? Hey, are you going to stay after for pizza? I know I am. I'd love to see you there." Then suddenly this is a really meaningful time. And another way a church did it is they had literally people that were volunteers to go around and talk to all the volunteers while they were serving about how their weeks were and how they could pray for them. I'm not even joking. This church, by the way, multiplied like 1,000 times in New Jersey. It's, like, amazing. But so I would be volunteering, and more than one person would swipe by my station and ask me how I'm doing and learn who I was and pray for me if I needed it and maybe invite me to a meal if they sometimes had one. It was phenomenal. Because a lot of our Christian singles serve, let's use that as an opportunity to really love them. Sometimes, especially as people get older, going to a singles event gets even more awkward. So if you just have a men's and women's group that's both married and single, but you mix it up a lot, then a single woman or a single man will have a chance to meet a lot of other single men or single women. And without it being a singles group, it's a very healthy, family oriented, but still getting to meet a lot of new people place, a place to date. 40% or more of Christian single adults hoping to be married. That's a lot of people. That is something I think the church would do something with if they knew what to do. I understand this is like a hard place to be. I'm gonna demystify it. I'm gonna make it really easy. All right. If I love Christian singles in my church and I know that a 40% ish or more care about dating, then from time to time, I have sermons or events that are comfortable spaces to talk about it. That's kind of all you really got to do for people to feel like their whole person is being listened to and loved and served. And if you've done all those other things I said, like with friendships and rotating small groups so people get to meet new people and having intentional volunteers, you've already been that perfect environment where people can make friendships in a group setting, which is the perfect environment for making a healthy dating connection. So the only finishing touches to really add is occasional sermons or spaces or events to specifically talk about dating because 2 reasons. One is that can put everyone on the same page sometimes and creates this, anticipation that, yeah, sometimes dating happens in the church, and that's a good thing because although God says sometimes it's even better to be single, God says it's okay to be married, and so, yeah, this is normal, and you can ask people out here, and this is how we do it with respect, and, this is how we say no nice. We gotta teach people that you don't have to be perfect to be married. If you're married, you already know that, but sometimes, there's so much teaching on God preparing your heart before marriage, character qualities to work on, to start your marriage off right. Sometimes Christian singles have told me they get the impression that married people somehow have it more together or that the reason why some people are single is because they just don't have it together yet. That is such a false, that's a lie. Christianity is not about being perfect. It's about being forgiven, and forgiving and just riding through the bumps of life. A purpose beyond dating. It's very interesting. In one of the surveys I gave my group, 100% of them said they wanted a space to talk about dating. And that same night, 100% of them said they wanted a space to talk about anything other than dating, to talk about life without dating or without marriage. It's not one group never wants to hear about dating and one group only wants to hear about dating. Often the same person wants a space to do either. So, yes, marriage is not the ultimate goal. And so we need to be echoing that in our churches, that the ultimate goal is loving the Lord, loving and serving others, being a part of a church community. And we need to be helping people advance in their careers, discern their ministries in the Lord, um, kind of have a community come around them and support them. So yeah, I know this says a lot, but elevate singles to positions of leadership in the church. And the last thing that leads into this, but the last thing is Paul and Jesus. As we give examples to Christian singles about just how abundant life can be as a single and how the church has honored it throughout history, and the Word of God says, in some ways, it's better to be single. For much of church history, where singles thrived, like Paul and like Jesus, the church was so much more one because the culture knew how to be hospitable and close. America today is so different. Paul and Jesus, they had people to eat dinner with every night. They probably were hardly ever completely on their own for even 48 hours at a time. If you think about how different that is from today, if someone lives alone, they could go 2 weeks without eating with someone or way, way longer, not to mention COVID. For a single person to really have an abundant life and go far in their purpose, as a church community, we need to be that thick family for them that will hold them up and help them know that single doesn't mean being alone, not in the family of God. Here's a beautiful, beautiful quote from a woman I ministered with. And also, interesting enough, that same week, a wonderful guy who's a single and a church leader said the same thing to me. I'll let you read it, but it's just so important. And at the very bottom of it, where it talks about, don't just tell the Sunday school leader thank you and give them a gift card, but also say, how you doing? Is there anything I can pray for in your life? Do you want to join us for dinner sometime? That's what a family does. I think sometimes as married people, we just forget. We don't mean to be getting our kids and rushing out. So this is just a reminder. So if you're a church leader or someone who's planning to start a singles ministry, you gotta have that core team. But you can't have that core team until you know amazing Christian singles at your church. And you got to get to know this Christian singles at your church to know which ones would be well suited for that role. So get to know the Christian singles. But if that seems overwhelming to you, if the singles in your church need to be known and leaders called up and identified and you don't have the time to do it, just designate people you trust to go and do that. And then once they find awesome people, then they can invite them to lunch with you. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do it all, but we do need to be talking to our singles and knowing who they are and building them up. So that's a high calling, but there is hope, especially for a unified church together serving our singles. And you don't have to be perfect. Let me know how I can serve you. Everything I do is free. I just want to be there for you.